Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming one of the great and often overlooked auteur directors of 80s exploitation cinema, Allan Holzman. He directed such classics as Forbidden World, Out of Control, which is the most underrated teen exploitation film of all time. He also directed Grunt, a wrestling movie, which is a pseudo documentary about wrestling. He also directed Program to Kill, and he was also an editor on a lot of 70s Roger Corman movies, like Battle Beyond the Stars and Crazy Mama, Candy Striped Nurses, etc. I'm having him on the show today to talk about all that stuff and talk about his documentary filmmaking. He's made documentaries about legendary people like Marilyn Monroe and Frank Capra and John Huston, and I can't wait to have him on. So yeah, here is my interview with Allan Holzman. Hey, Allan.
Hi, Tommy. How are you?
I am spectacular. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Ready to go back to 1985?
Yeah. Before we do that, though, I'd like to go back a little bit further. Did you gravitate toward film early on?
No. As a stutterer, I was only involved with math as my career goal.
Mm-hmm.
Math and physics, more theoretical physics.
But were you?
I never imagined myself in film and never, thought of that as a goal. Although the most influential, the first time I saw The Graduate, I felt that American films had some meaning to them.
Mm-hmm. Was The Graduate the first movie you saw that you said, I want to be a filmmaker?
No, just I suddenly had an interest in American movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I before that, Eight and a Half was my favorite movie. It was only a year before, I think, a year or two.
8.5, yeah. What are your favorite movies?
8.5 is still my favorite, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Lawrence of Arabia and the usual suspects. More recently, Run, I loved. And Parasite kind of fulfills all that excitement, too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you're originally from Baltimore?
Yes.
So after high school and once you got the filmmaking bug, did you go to film school?
No, well, I did, but the filmmaking bug didn't come that quickly. I actually had the acting bug because you don't stutter when you act, and I'd always acted as a way to, be expressive. Mm-hmm. Not because I had intentions to act, but just because I, had an ability there, and it was really a lot of fun. But then when I got to the middle of my junior year in college, we were studying the fourth dimension, which didn't apply to life, and I was really depressed because then I'd have to teach. And so I was afraid to do acid, but I knew from science that if you stayed up for 4 days and nights, your brain would secrete the same kind of fluid, and you would have, possibly a really life-changing, experience. And I did that, and after the fourth night, I went with a walk with my philosophy teacher in the snow, and I was just wearing a short-sleeved shirt, and I told him the problem, and he said, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I wanted to communicate. Mm-hmm. And he said, how can you do that? And I said, I can act. And he said, well, go act. So I just packed my bags and went to New York City. And after I saw how difficult it was to make it as an actor, I had the opportunity when I was playing this Search of an Author, Williamstown Summer Theater.
Mm-hmm.
I got it for Circle Square Theater when I was studying there. Full scholarship to Bennington with a work stipend, and my work assignment was as a school projectionist. And we were projecting, and we were showing the Criterion or the Janus archive. And that's how I really got my exposure to film and started seeing film as art and fell in love with film.
Wow. And when you were trying to be an actor, did you see anybody in New York that went on to become famous?
Well, Dustin Hoffman was the Circle in the Square 2 weeks before I got there. And so but I did get a chance to observe Martin Sheen. I was assisting the stage manager, and Martin Sheen got a role in a Brecht play directed by Michael Mann.
Mm-hmm.
Not Michael Mann from film, but Michael Mann from... it was Ted Mann, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was great. And I watched him learn the Brecht play in 3 days, and it had something like, 30 scenes, and he was just phenomenal. And I also saw him when he checked into the Philippine Village Hotel for Apocalypse Now, because I was there meeting for Fred Weintraub then. A Universal picture called Czechoslovakia Crash, starring Joe Baker and Jordan Baker and Susan Sarandon.
Yeah. What year did you move to L.A.?
73 to go to the American Film Institute.
Mm-hmm.
I had recut John Apnett's 16 millimeter feature in New York and recommended that he go to film school, and he went to AFI, and when he saw what it was, he called and said, "You got to come here." I think because of my editing experience, they really wanted me, because my first assignment there, extracurricular, was to edit the montages for the James Cagney, the AFI Lifetime Achievement Award. It was the second year of it, and the first year it was to John Ford, but it was the evening itself had difficulty keeping people's interest because they showed whole scenes rather than montages. And so they wanted, instant excitement built into things. So I actually, invented a way to do it, because it was before videotape existed, but it was only on 2-inch and very expensive. And so I got 2 answer prints of each of his movies, and I edited on one of the answer prints and with the mag track. And then once the edits were complete, I then matched it with the other answer print and made splices below the frame line so it could be projected interlocked for the evening. And the show actually won an Emmy Award.
Wow, amazing. That's amazing. And then from there, did you go to Roger Corman's studio?
Yeah, I was actually all at Roger Corman at the same time, because I needed money, and the James Cagney thing didn't pay at all. And but I've been recommended. A friend of mine at AFI, Barbara Noble, was offered the job, but then she didn't want to do it. Actually, the AFI students were really snobbish towards Corman. But I jumped at, she recommended me, and I jumped at the opportunity, and I was cutting Candy Stripe Nurses during the day and James Cagney at night, and being a film student.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't sleep very much, and I found that a Jack in the Box fish sandwich and milkshake could keep you up all night. I don't know why, but my guess is that there was some kind of amphetamine in the milkshake.
Yeah.
It could have been in the frozen food too, I don't know, but it worked.
Oh, that's so cool. You edited movies like Candy Stripe Nurses, Crazy Mama, The Amsterdam Kill, and of course Battle Beyond the Stars. That's a great filmmaking education right there, I have to say.
Well, I'm coming out with a book, hopefully by next month, based on a journal that I kept doing, that'll be Beyond the Stars.
Right, you sent me that link. I thought that was pretty cool. Were you Were you a second unit director on Smokey Bites the Dust?
I was. I did all the concept for the movie, which was produced by Gail and Hurd.
Right.
Was to collect all of Corman's crashes from all of the different car movies and create a new car movie where you motivated the kids who were escaping to get in and out of different cars in different states so the decals could match the crashes that existed. And my job was to take people from the talk scenes to the crashes without crashing anything. And of course, on my first day, I said, get closer until they actually crashed. And so I was ready to lose my job the next morning, and the stuntmen stayed up all night and fixed the cars, and no one knew anything. It was really fantastic. I think they liked me because it was the odd thing was that here I was getting my first break to prove myself to Corman as a director, and I'm a stutterer, and to do second unit in a car movie, that you do everything through a walkie-talkie. And so I knew I didn't stand a chance, and I didn't want to be laughed at for stuttering on a walkie-talkie all the time. But I was a roller skater, so I skated from camera to car to talk to them directly, and people, the stuntmen, loved that attention and personal feel, and that's why I think they saved my butt with the car crash.
Yeah, did that give you personal confidence after that as a director?
I always had personal confidence as a director. Confidence has nothing to do with stuttering. Stuttering, as I learned later, actually after Out of Control, when I did go into this very intensive speech therapy, where you learn to accept yourself as a stutterer, and the reason why you keep your stuttering as an adult is you're trying not to stutter, no matter how it started. So confidence actually has nothing to do with it.
And what was Charles Griffith like to work with?
He hated me because I was one of those upstart. Roger hires directors who are on their way up and on their way down.
Yeah.
And so I loved Chuck. I thought his Little Shop of Horrors and Bucket of Blood, especially Bucket of Blood, is one of my favorite movies. I think genius. The line with Dick Miller says when he's trying to make a face out of clay, it says, "Come on, be a nose, be a nose." It's my favorite cinema line.
Yeah, that's very funny.
He hates the upstarts because they're trying to take his jobs for his movie that he wants to direct. So he actually hid the decals every morning before I got there. So I had to spend the first hour of my day finding the decals. I didn't look or complain. I just knew I had to find that they weren't where I left them. And I knew I would have to devote some time to that. And I just did it, and I never said anything and just managed my time. So
that's unfortunate, though, that one of your heroes just treated you like that.
Well, it's like joining a fraternity, or it's part of that rookie year on any sports team. You got to prove yourself, and so.
And that Gary Graver was the cinematographer. What a strange yet amazing career that guy had.
Yeah, I never really got to know him because he was first unit, So, he's really had quite a story.
And did that lead you to directing Forbidden World?
No, I then had to do additional scenes for a kung fu movie. Firecracker, and the foreign title was Naked Fist. And Roger asked me to do a love scene and a chase scene, and then cut the trailer using primarily those scenes so it would look like it was shot in America, not in the Philippines. And so there's a really funny story with that. So I was cutting Candy Striped Nurses. The last meeting with Roger, he gave the director a comment that really stuck with me, because in Candy Striped Nurses, as in all of his movies, he has 3 plots. So that it says one or 3 storylines of similar plots. And as soon as one of the storylines gets boring, you go to the other. And if you have 3, you can have an unpredictable pattern. And one of the storylines in Candy Striped Nurses was that the rock star Owen Bowles couldn't get it up, and Candace Rielson, Roger's main actress, who's a Candy Striper, took it upon herself to cure him. And by the end, he gets it up and he starts making love with her and his 2 go-go dancers.
Yeah.
But Roger always insisted you have coverage, but the director did it in one shot, and it was a wide angle. It was handheld, but it didn't really move that much. And Owen Bowles never took off his pants while he was making love to the 3 women.
Mm-hmm.
And so Roger was frustrated that he couldn't do anything with the scene, because in those days also you couldn't jump cut. That was totally against any filmmaking aesthetics on any level.
Mm-hmm.
So he called the director back in the room and he said, Alan, the director's name was Alan, so I don't know what you plan to do from here, or I don't know where you plan to go or what you plan to do, but I want you to remember one thing. When a man fucks, he takes his pants off.
Yeah.
So I wrote the scene where the woman takes off the guy's pants with kung fu knives, and I just thought it was just brilliant. And then the chase scene, I had the woman lose an article of clothing every time there was a skirmish, and it was all through Corman's back lot, of the studio that he just bought, that I had going to be going for battle. So.
Mm-hmm. So that's what led you to directing Forbidden World.
Not quite, because I asked Roger, to direct, previously previous to Smokey Bites the Dust. I had asked Roger if I could direct, and he could. I said, I've done everything for you as an editor, and I saved Battle from the fate of going over budget and not meeting the schedule. And I said I deserve a chance to direct, and he said, "Can you stutter and direct?" And I said, I stutter less when I'm directing, but I still stutter, but it's the act of communicating, which is more than most directors do. Like, you have a point there, Alan, I'm going to put you through the Roger Corman school of filmmaking. Mm-hmm. The first time it was second year in a car movie, additional scenes for a kung fu movie, and then the third assignment, he came to me on a Tuesday, and he said the spaceship set for Galaxy of Terror, which was shot on Monday through Friday. The first unit is second unit shooting on Saturday, and then Monday it's redressed for a crash set. So it's free on Sunday. And he said, if you can write and direct a 7 to 8 minute opening of a space movie that can go anywhere, I'll give you a whole movie. And he said, I'll give you an astronaut and a robot, because Don, I'm forgetting his last name, came into his office with a robot suit and offered to act in a Corman movie for free with the suit. Mm-hmm. and he owed Jesse Venn a movie from his previous deal. So I stayed up for 4 days and nights with it. I slept a little bit, so I wasn't hallucinating, but it was a grind, and he loved it. Okay, and then he said, "Oh yes, and here's the best part." He said, "If you need any inspiration, I've always wanted to do a version of Lawrence of Arabia in space." And I said, "David Lean's my favorite director." He said, "Well, then we should have no problem at all." And the only thing that's left of that is that the planet's name is Exarvia, because soon after I gave him the treatment based on Lawrence of Arabia, he said, "I want to rip off Alien."
Yeah. Jim Wynorski co-wrote the story. He's been on the podcast. What a character that guy is.
Yeah. He actually, was really smart. He, with R.J. Robertson, his co-writer, took Corman's Attack of the Crab Monsters, which was, a ripoff of The Thing,
Mm-hmm.
Alien is derived from, and used basically that plot for it. So Roger said, I like it. And then he hired Tim Kernan, who is a top screenwriter coming out of NYU, and who's fantastic. I started on that script, actually a short story based on it, so I was already, my first idea was the laser shower, and then I went on from there.
I heard there was a screening of the movie where Roger punched some guy who was laughing at the movie, and later that night, the guy poured fruit punch on Roger from the balcony.
Well, no, you got some aspects of the story, but it's been told in so many different ways, and the extras when they interviewed the people, everyone had a different version of the story. But I saw it all. I was in the center of it all, and so here's the story. I knew that Roger didn't like to mix comedy with horror, because when I came in to cut Crazy Mama, I'm pretty sure that Tina Hirsch was allowed to cut that, but she had to stay on Death Race because Roger was trying to cut the comedy out of that, and successfully did. And so I started with Crazy Mama, which was directed by Jonathan Demme,
Mm-hmm.
and in the same room as Tina, and then watch Roger and Paul and Tina fight, and then take out comedy from really good jokes from that film.
Yeah.
And so I asked all the editing people never to laugh when Roger was watching anything. And Roger loved me as an editor, so he only saw the film in his office in this small screening room.
Mm-hmm.
And so he never knew that it was funny and I didn't anticipate that he would have a sneak, which he did at the Coleman Theater, which at that time was one large theater, and it wasn't even advertised. There was a small cardboard sign at the bottom of one of the storefront windows that said "Sneak preview tonight." But it was in felt pen. That time, it was before Sharpies. One brown cardboard. I don't think anyone even saw it. Anyway, they were expecting to see a movie called Moving Violations, and instead, Space movie comes up. And I was standing in the back of the theater, which is pretty packed. And people started laughing and screaming as loud as I had ever dreamed. But I was in seventh heaven. I was thinking everything is working. Still, Roger comes up the aisle, strolling past me, and there was one guy in the back, who was yelling at the screen. But the other people were too. It wasn't like he was the only one at all. I mean, it was really alive. It was great. And Roger stood over the guy, waited for him to make his next, hoot, and whacked him right in the face. And said, and pointed at him, and said, "Stop laughing. This is a serious sci-fi movie." And Roger had his head of post, Clark Henderson, with him, who, the two of them were pretty intimidating together. Anyway, Roger started to get a little bit afraid, so he went back to his seat, or he did a different seat, and at the end of the screening, he came roaring out, saying, "This is the worst thing I've had in 23 years, but don't worry, I know how to save it." And I said, "Save it." It was great. And we argued outside the theater about good comedy versus bad comedy. And anyone over 35 said it was bad comedy. Anyone under 35 said it was good comedy. So he said, "Be there in the editing room tomorrow morning, make the cuts, or I'll have someone else do it." So as he left, the guy who he punched came out and threw a large Coke and hit him square in the back. And the guy was pretty big. And Roger turned to him with his fist raised in a deep voice, and he looked at the guy and he said, no, we're even, and he walked away.
Oh man, you don't fuck with the king.
Story as it happened.
Yeah, you don't fuck with the king of B movies. So, how does Out of Control come into your life?
After Forbidden World, I managed to get Hollywood's top agent, Harry Upland, independent agent, and I was his new young director. The other people he represented were Scorsese and Ridley Scott, Tony Scott, Marty Brest, and so he showed the film to Julia Phillips. But actually, that's why I got Harry, because his son worked on the film as a PA, and Harry kept hearing stories about the movie, so Harry said, I want to see this film when it's done. And so he invited Julia Phillips to the movie, and her previous movies were The Sting and Taxi Driver and Close Encounters. Those are the 3 previous movies that she produced. So she saw the movie and declared me the next Scorsese Spielberg, and attached me to her science fiction kids movie that was similar in genre to E.T. Different story completely, but it had the same audience appeal, and it was for kids and involved extraterrestrials. And so she took me around Hollywood as the stuttering director. And we finally got a deal at TriStar, and Sidney Pollack was the supervising producer there, or the producer who gave them the rights for everything. And he had to approve of me as a stuttering director, which he did. It was really great. He never talked with me about my speech. He asked me what my take was. And as a stutterer, trying to prove myself as a director, I got into the habit of making charts of the movie where you could see the movie on one page with every scene, and whether it was, it was just a technical thing, whether it was a big production or small, and I would put boxes on them and break it down in 5 acts, etc. And I could point to things, and it was easier for me to talk that way. And so he saw my chart, and I said that I wanted to do a film that was from the kids' point of view, and make it, MTV had just started, and I wanted to do a lot of it handheld, and a lot of it was, basically in minds, and so I really wanted to make it a real roller coaster ride. Hitchcock, always went by the roller coaster theory in his movies, which was you make your first, drop the hardest, etc., and you go from there. So people are always waiting for it to get that bad again. And you look out different turns and moves, but and so this was really going to be a roller coaster ride in more ways than one. So we were also going to be the first film to do digital effects, and Eli Whitney's great grandson, something. I had the Cray computer and his facility in Hollywood, and they had done some experiments, and we wanted to show the executives at TriStar what we were doing. And Julia, after working with the special effects people for a bit, realized that she would need more money, and so she was asking for $4 million more. And she was supposed to be off of drugs, but then when she was asking for $4 million, we walked outside. She was pulling a cigarette out of her pack, and it out fell this huge Rastafarian type joint. And while she was asking for $4 million more, and William Koblenz, the supervising producer for this project, went back to the office and canceled the movie. And this was after a year and a half of script rewrites and meetings, et cetera, and I was flat out broke. And Fred Weintraub, for whom I edited 3 films, done this movie that my daughter wrote, I'm producing. And so Harry recommended me, and of course I had a good relationship with Fred. Starring was not an issue, and because I, edited 3 films for him, and including Amsterdam Kill. And he gave me the script, and it needed a lot of work, and he said that I could rewrite it. He assigned a new writer to work with me, and then Dan Grunt was the producer, and we got along really well. And, I was a little bit turned off by the casting because it was done in, I couldn't really control the whole thing, at all. But the cast was good. It was a little bit too old for me, but they were, kind of established people and, meant for it. But the main thing was that Fred said that we could rewrite, improve the script, and it was, it was definitely, based on the Lord of the Flies type concept, except the kids had no trouble surviving in the script as written. So we just tried to make it a little more believable, of what the circumstances were. We didn't change any major scenes. We still did all the things that they did. We just tried to motivate it a little bit more. And when Fred got there, he hated it, threw it out, and had that script. And then the big nightmare set in, because the next thing he told me was that I couldn't look through the camera. That John, was such a great cameraman that he worked out, with his directors that they never looked through the camera. And to me, that was the biggest disappointment because I was such a visual person. And then also my concept, I brought the same concept that I had with Ghost Town to the films movies that I wanted to see from the kids' point of view when I wanted it handheld. And John didn't object to the handheld, but he didn't want to move with the kids. So he held it by hand, but he restaged everything for the kids to come to him in a way rather than just following them. And that was, that put the concept in another realm that was frigid because you couldn't really cut that.
Yeah.
You were stuck with shots.
Yeah. I love this movie. I first saw it in 2003. I was living by one of the last video stores that we had in the Bay Area. They had every New World movie on video cassette, and I used to rent them all. And this was one of my favorites. I eventually bought it when the store closed, and I just love how it's a very unique movie. It's like it's a true exploitation movie, unlike any other, because these teenagers, they graduate high school and they end up on a deserted island, and all they want to do is get drunk and get laid. But by the end of the movie, they had to grow up really fast and survive from these terrorists,
which includes getting raped.
Yes.
And making love the morning after the rape scene.
Yeah.
That was the biggest challenge. My philosophy always is that, like, I don't try, I'm handed the script that I can't really change or, do anything with, and not really, but I have a chance to express myself as a filmmaker. And so how can I make this the most exciting moment that it can be, et cetera. So, but people generally don't see through that. You of course can, but generally people don't see through that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the problem with B movies. Until the studios, of course, they make B movies now. That's what everything that B movies were, is what the studios make. So it kind of took all the fun out of B movie making.
Mm-hmm. How was Betsy Russell to work with?
Well, everyone was good to work with. She was, she had, it was very hard because the film was meant to take place in the Whidbey Islands outside of Seattle in the summer, And we were shooting in the dead of winter in Dubrovnik, a couple hours from Sarajevo, where they were having the Winter Olympics. Or they just had it. So it was like, they were half naked the whole time in freezing weather. And the first thing that Fred said to me was that you can't get them wet. And so that was the morning that they were supposed to come out of the water into the rocks.
Yeah.
And I heard it right away, and then John set me up right on the first day, because he said, well, let's just keep cameras on each of the actors and keep it rolling and, have them improvise. And so I bought into that idea. I said, we're going to be shooting a lot of film. He said, Fred doesn't mind. It's okay. Just roll the film. So I did that. And the next day, Fred freaked out. How can you spend so much money, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't say that John said I could do that. I took it. And so it was, then I had to really be conservative about film from there on. But I was trying to make it as much of an adventure as I could. And it's kind of absurd. I love the machine gun with the seaplane and that sort of thing. It's pretty. And the kids jumping off of the cliff.
Sherilyn Fenn, I met her at a convention about a year and a half ago. She's wonderfully eccentric.
Yeah, she was a real innocent on the film, and so she was very sweet. And I loved her scene where she kisses the guy in the seaplanes in the middle of them.
What prompted you guys to shoot the movie in Yugoslavia?
Fred had some kind of money deal, Definitely, something that I wasn't too privy to, but it was definitely some kind of I don't know, however the money thing worked out in Europe in those days.
Yeah. New World shot a lot of movies around the same time in Yugoslavia, like Transylvania 65000, which, by the way, had the guy who played the pilot in Out of Control, Peter Buntik. He played Frankenstein in that movie.
Really?
Yeah. I wonder if he's still alive.
I don't know. I just met him the day of the shoot and never saw him again. So I don't know him that much.
Yeah. How did you get James Ingram to sing the theme song?
Fred did that. Well, Fred came from the music world. He produced with Woodstock, and was Bob Dylan's manager, and all his were Warner Brothers on the lot, so he had all of his connections.
Yeah, it's a good song. It's one of those James Ingram songs nobody remembers, but it's a good one. Yeah. Did Out of Control ever...
I never met him, but the song is very cool, especially as a love song.
Yeah, and we just lost him not too long ago, too.
Yeah.
Did Out of Control ever air on HBO or Cinemax?
I don't think so.
Yeah. It's funny I discovered it on VHS because I saw everything on HBO, that was made from New World. And that was like one of the rare ones that didn't air.
Well, what happened was that I recut the movie after Fred finished it. And I'd gone into speech therapy as soon as I came back because I was so, distraught at having lost control of the movie. In my first movie, I had complete control until Roger flipped out and made me cut stuff out. So that became compromised, and I didn't want to work for Roger again. I turned down 3 offers he made to me, but I felt compromised.
Yeah.
Even though I really loved working for him, really enjoyed it, but I felt that I couldn't do it again because of that. And even though it may have been my fault, because I knew I was going against something he liked, and I tried to win, and in any event I lost, and it was just, I just couldn't go through it again. So when I lost control of out of control, and oh yeah, when it came back, Fred wouldn't let me in the editing room. So it was like, here I am an editor, and I know I can always save my own skin whenever I want to.
Yeah.
And now I couldn't do that, and I couldn't even have any input. I couldn't talk to my friends even. I couldn't talk to anybody. And I went through this therapy where I had to avoid it when I first came out here because you had to accept yourself as a stutterer.
Yeah.
But now I was ready to do anything. I was desperate. And so I did everything they said, which is, to talk about stuttering, to mention your stuttering in the beginning, to stutter openly, to let the sound in, and then ultimately to stutter voluntarily. So it took a good 2 to 3 months before almost the same time it took to finish the movie in post, before I had reached a certain level where I could speak with a very easy stutter, an open stutter, and not bothersome. And it didn't look, I wasn't trying to stop the stuttering, so I didn't have any of those weird eye blinks or moves of the eye or turning away. And most importantly, I wasn't afraid to say anything. I didn't stop me from saying anything. And when I went in to see Bob Remy, because New World was bought from Roger at that point, and the first thing I said to him was, this is the first time I've been within 20 feet of an executive and haven't been afraid of stuttering. And he said, oh, you don't have to be afraid of me. I said, well, I'm not afraid of you. I stutter. And the purpose of that is that once you announce that you stutter, then it's no longer, you're no longer trying to hide it, everything, because it's already revealed. And he said, my nephew stutters. Can we talk about it? And we talked about stuttering for 40 minutes. And he said, why are you here? And I said, I'm going to recut my film. Here's the budget. And he said, fine. So that was great. But I couldn't go into the negative. I just had to recut from what was there. So that's why it's so short. I could only make it shorter. I couldn't go into other takes.
Mm-hmm. And then
I found, in terms of the first thing, that the pace was just too slow. So I really wanted to up-tempo the whole thing.
Yeah. But you did a documentary called Grunt, a wrestling movie.
And how? And that's a totally misunderstood movie. It's still one day it's really a funny movie. And again, I had to hide the fact that we were making, and it was a combined effort from people from post-production. Tony Randall had a huge role, and he was the supervisor of post. So while I was editing out of control, we kind of kept conceiving of this. Tony was a big fan of another wrestling movie, and we somehow came up with the idea to do a Spinal Tap version of wrestling. Because the whole real fake, is wrestling real or fake, but make that the issue. And so it's a documentary about wrestling that explored that issue, but it was this fictional documentary, so it was the Spinal Tap of wrestling, basically.
Yeah.
And New World bought into it with James Robinson. It was his first movie here, and they just wanted wrestling matches. They didn't care about, comedy or anything, or the kind of comedy we were doing. They really wanted a silly comedy. But we were making a sophisticated comedy. They actually had an Citizen Kane opening, and that sort of thing. So, when they saw it, they decided they didn't like it, but they were going to release it. And there was an opening in the southeast because the film had dropped out, and they just plugged it in there with 200 prints, and there was no time to get a trailer on screen or any advertising. We had no stars in it because we couldn't use WWF wrestlers because they want to control the movie. So we used a lot of Mexican wrestlers and bodybuilders and retired wrestlers, and which is fine with me.
Yeah.
And that didn't hurt the movie at all. It actually helped the movie. But there was a tornado, or rather a hurricane in the southeast. It was something happened. There was a major storm, and no one went. And so they dumped the movie. And actually, before the movie was released, I was in the office of the person who was second in charge of distribution, and he had his legs crossed, and he pointed to the bottom of his shoe, and he said, "You see this?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's where your film's going to be Monday morning." And it was.
Wow.
But I begged and pleaded for L.A. opening, and before that, Cyndi Lauper and Andy Warhol liked the movie, and they wanted to open it in New York with rock and roll wrestling. And New World said, "No, we don't make any money on that." That's why they put it in the Southeast. So I begged and pleaded for one theater LA release just so I could get reviews and it could be recognized as a movie. And they gave that to me, and it was at the Fox Theater on Venice, which no longer is a movie theater, but at that time it stopped being a retrospective movie theater and became, believe it or not, a Yugoslavian movie theater. So my biggest nightmare. But we rented it for a week, full wall, but I staged a live wrestling event outside the theater on opening night, which had two bouts. One was with Queen Kong and Killer Tomato. Mm-hmm. That was refereed by Poor Man from K-Rock. And, we had planned that they would pants him in the ring, and Poor Man kept saying, "Is wrestling real or not?" Mm-hmm. So they actually let their pants in, but then Queen Kong wound up sitting on his face. and he came out of the ring and he said, "She really sat on my face." Anyhow, we sold out in the theater. It was a great show. We got a great review in the LA Weekly. It was pick of the week, and then it was gone. It's still gone. And I recently converted it to 16:9, and I was told that no one claims ownership to it. I should just release it myself.
Yeah. I found out Donald G. Jackson directed a wrestling documentary for New World at the same time. Yeah. I Like to Hurt People, it's called.
Yeah. That's what preceded it. That's what gave Tony the idea to do a documentary for us to use with wrestling as a subject matter.
Yeah, you got Andre the Giant.
We actually shot the second unit on the movie.
Yeah. Wow. What about making Program to Kill?
Well, I was showing Grunt around town. And Moshe Barkat, who was the head of Modern Video Film, and they were like the state-of-the-art videotape, place that converted when films went to tape. The best films went to him, and he did all of Spielberg's work. And so I had a friend who worked with him, and she brought him to a screening of Grunt, and he really liked it. He was partners with Moshe Diamant and Eduardo Louis, and they had just started Transworld. And Transworld was producing their first movie, which was then called Retaliator, which was the female version of Terminator, starring Sam Bergman and Robert Ginty. Mm-hmm. First version of it was shot by Bob Short, who was the special effects director, and who was the special effects artist, and it just didn't work well at all. And so they hired an Israeli director who took the same script, but it was a complete reshoot, and they recostumed much different looks for people, and that was a failure as well. So they had to release the movie, and so they asked me to which I did.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that became the movie. What I did was I gave her a video, an operation, when I gave her a video eye so she could see, so everyone from both movies could see what she was seeing, and then she just killed everybody from both movies, assassinated them, and then there was a war in the end.
Yeah.
We did at the airport, so. But I did, save that for them, but they wouldn't let me show them the movie for a good year and a half because they didn't want me going around saying that I saved it. They wanted me to take full directing credit so that it would look like the movie was being saved. So finally, when I did get the show, that's when I got The Stranger.
Mm-hmm. Robert Ginty, he was such an underrated actor. A few people I've talked to who worked with him say he was a great guy.
He was, but he didn't like to run.
You didn't like to run?
That was the first thing he told me when I said my first shot was we found a great underground facility at the where they turn, where they clean those sludge, poop, etc., whatever it's called, but the underground facility was also long, pipes and everything was really cool. So we would put sparks down, and he used to run as if he was being shot at, and he ran once, and the sparks were, the timing's a little bit off, so I had him do it again. And for take two, and he says, "I'm never doing take two again. You understand me?" I said, "You're an action hero." He said, "You don't understand me."
Oh man. Did you do additional editing on Vamp?
I did. I was second editor. It wasn't really additional editing. It was. It wasn't like I came in after it was cut, but it was. I did the action scene.
I love that movie. It's a great movie.
I really liked it.
Yeah, Richard Wenk. I reached out to him last October. Didn't hear back. Hopefully, I will this year, though.
And the producer of that movie, John Borchers,
right.
He also did Angel. But then I'm not quite sure what happened with him, but he was really on a hot streak.
Oh yeah, I reached out to him a couple of years ago, and he told me to send him an episode of the podcast, and then I never heard back from him after that. But I think he's in Florida or something like that.
I lost touch with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I was kind of like, all the attention was around Richard and everybody else, and the person who's in the second position was kind of off to the side. Just do your work, go home.
Yeah.
I did.
You were a second unit director on Critters 2?
That was really funny. Yeah, it was a great experience. My first shot was like a big crowd scene, and so all it's all hand puppets. So all the critter operators are below, so you build a whole platform and they put grass on top of it, and you have all these people who you can't see who are under the grass, right, operating. And so my first instruction was, okay, turn right, and it went in every different direction. So then when I said turn towards the parking lot, everyone knew where that was. But the team was great. I loved doing it, and my favorite shot is the point of view critters, multiple critters rolling shot that was done with a big spool that was from electrical cable and putting the camera in.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed that film.
Yeah, Mick Garris was good to work with.
Mick Garris was great to work with.
Yeah.
He was really, we didn't have that much contact because he was busy with the actors and I was busy with the critters. And, I did the stuff that didn't involve the actors. So, all the cutaways with what stunt people coming on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hard shoot because it was at night and it was cold and all outside. And,
Yeah. And Intimate Stranger, that was a very
And
successful.
the DP for that went on to do Titanic. Russell.
Oh yeah. Wow. And then Intimate Stranger, that was a successful TV movie you did for Showtime with Deborah Harry. How was that experience?
That was actually really great. And it was great to work with Deborah Harry. And my only nightmarish thing with that, I seem to have nightmarish things with everything, was at the heyday. It was like right when test marketing was like the hot thing, and people who could communicate with teens, and get their opinions and mark that kind of thing. And so, I begged that they don't take an erotic thriller to a test market thing, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted to like the James Russo character, the cop, who was not at all very sympathetic to the phone sex operator who was the star in the Deborah Harry played. But they wanted, some kind of romance to happen there. And we already shot the film. And we already shot the guy as an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to recut it so that he wasn't such an asshole. And then the film kind of lost its edge, its true edge,
Yeah.
It just didn't, it just didn't have what it was, again, I couldn't control what was happening with it. So it was Showtime's highest rated movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't capitalize on it because our second child was born 4 months early, and we were in Baltimore, and we were in major medical nightmare for a long time. And but when I was able to work full time again after two years, I was cutting trailers at night. Bring in someone where I have to be around during the day, and so I want to be around during the day as a child care. With my wife, she was quite weak because she was actually carrying the baby abdominally, and we didn't know it. She had lost more than half of her blood.
Oh.
To figure it out, and there was a time during the AIDS crisis, so we couldn't get transfused. So it was a two month recovery, and we had a 3-year-old daughter at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot going on that I couldn't get lost in the movie, but managed to keep things together by playing trip letter underscore.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and it really, and I wound up taking over the show. Well, I'm cutting 5 into 6 hours, supervising 6. It became a 2-year experience. And I went from there to Spielberg, where I brought the same food philosophy into survivors of the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
So, I fell into very, deep, meaningful documentaries for which I was, for which I received many awards as well. And I went on to do produce with Cynthia Fujikawa, Old Man River, where I blended both documentary and dramatic together in one film, and that one got lots of awards. It never got distributed because it didn't have a star based on a one-woman show, and it was both a documentary and a drama, and no one could quite figure out what to do with it. So it did win a lot of awards.
Mm-hmm.
And then that got me, and then I wound up doing multi-screen work in theme parks and developing a whole multi-screen ability to communicate stories, and I'm trying to do a lot of that now. I turned the I Have a Dream speech, which I had edited earlier on my own, to be visualized with all available footage. I did that after working with Spielberg on my own, but I had the resources then to do that. And I turned that into a screen presentation, and I'm trying to raise funding to complete that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've made documentaries about David Lean, John Huston, Frank Capra. Are those your directorial idols?
They are. I have many directorial idols. But the reason for all of those, David Lean is my ultimate, and I was actually at the seminar at AFI when he did that interview.
Uh-huh.
But I had bugged AFI. I created Invisible Artists and Cinema Editors. I produced 10 years of that as well. I made documentaries into a compilation, and then then it was taken over by a company that could do it much cheaper and do some switching, and I was against switching, doing, because it just, you can't have any kind of, I was doing it more of a film style, but after 10 years, I was pretty burnt, so I was really happy someone came in to take it over. And I was just recently given an award from ACE for creating that, my contribution to the art of editing. So that I started to teach then too, and so I knew as a film student at AFI, they had the Harold Lloyd seminars where it was a unique way of education, because there was no moderator. Mm-hmm. The students spent a week to 2 weeks watching everything the filmmaker made previously, so it was an educated group, and it was all in the living room. There weren't that many. When I was there were 20 students. By the time at the end of the 80s, there was something like 40 and 50. So it was an intimate environment, and some of them were recorded. And so I bugged AFI and finally talked to the head librarian of what was around from that time, and they said, it hasn't been stored well. There are a few things that are in a closet, and we're ready to throw them out. So if you want it, come take whatever you want. Mm-hmm. So I found those directors there, and I made movies of each of them, whatever I found, and visualized it without a narrator with their movies. Mm-hmm. It's great. And I'm hoping to teach on campus. I used that in my teaching at USC, and I had a 12-year run there. And I'm trying to visit schools now where I can spend 3 to 4 days showing all the film education work generated. I've done that a few times already. Last one was at Rush I'm interested in communicating the culture of film. It's really important.
Yeah. Tell me about your book, Celluloid Wars.
It was a book that's taken 42 years to publish. Actually, no, I exaggerate. It's 41. When I worked on Battle, I had written a novel about my life just before I got the job on Battle because my stuttering had gotten so bad. This was before Allan Control, was another period when my stuttering had gotten really bad. Because I had to have other producers make phone calls for me because I couldn't deal on the phone at all. And when Roger, for example, when Roger said that I could go to the Roger Corman School of Filmmaking, I was supposed to call him every Friday to see if he had anything for me. And all I had to do was say, "Hi, Roger, do you have anything for me?" And so I would call him at 2 on Friday, and he would call me back around 5. And I sat down with a bottle of wine or two, and by 5 it was generally more than half consumed. And so I was a little bit drunk. I didn't stutter much when I was drunk. So I would say, "Hi, Roger, you have anything for me?" No, that was it. So, and I got ripped off. I'd done this roller skating thriller that was based on M at the Boardwalk. And we had a deal with Erwin Yablans, who had done Halloween. And then after being with him a year and rewrites where, I do a lot of script changes. We have to do like 10 or 11 drafts. He then went to do Roller Boogie. So I was so furious, and I was able to get money from find another producer who had some money, and they sent me to New York to cast it, which I did. And then I came back to report the casting, and the producer was nowhere to be found, and I finally found him in a one-room basement apartment in San Francisco, which now would be worth a lot, but then it wasn't. And he cried and said he was a fake. And so I had to get work the next day, and luckily I could get a construction job as an old man. I sanded floors and, shellac stuffing and mixed cement and that sort of thing. But I wrote a novel every morning about my life, trying to figure out my stuttering and its relationship to rape, because I had always studied about rape. And, like the rape scene in Out of Control has an enormous amount of passion put into it. And whenever I did theater or any kind of film scene, in Mutant 2, in Forbidden World, the center, the climax of that thing is the rape scene where the mutant rapes the woman. And, I didn't know. My friends thought, "Well, are you a rapist? You want to rape people? Is that why you're doing it?" I was studying about rape, and I just couldn't figure it out. And so I did figure it out by writing a novel that I was molested when I was 6 by my uncle on the day my baby brother was born.
Oh, God.
And I was told a completely different story. I was told that I was so overwhelmed with joy that I didn't know what to say, so my vocal cords became paralyzed. And I couldn't be around any man. I couldn't be around any man with thick hairy hands. And I would see that, I would get weird chills. And, it haunted me. And I remembered images that I couldn't. Finally, when I wrote the novel, by the time I got to page 200, is when I put together time and place and what happened. And it didn't cure my stuttering at all, but I stopped getting chills.
Mm-hmm.
But it did give me, and then I made the movie in Super 8, shot it all on roller skates, a silent film. And that was in 1979, 80. And so then, that was in 79. And then I decided that I had to go back, the construction job stopped, and I had to go back into film. And I really wanted to cut a good movie, and Coppola was producing I
Mm-hmm.
said yes. And I knew the political environment there, where everybody's trying to be a director, and the best way to be a director, psychologically, I guess, is to put down the people you're looking for. And so I knew it was always going to be such a competitive environment, and I wanted it to be a good movie, and I likened it to The King Mutiny, where Anton Kellogg, actually another character kept a journal, but I forget I think but the whole structure of King Mutiny was this journal, where the officer tried to figure out the best path to take for the next day, and the analysis was done the night before in the form of a journal. So I did that with Battle. I wrote every day, and it became an amazing ride and quite funny too, and painful for a while. But there was a lot of humor in that pain. But a lot of really important issues came up, mostly centered on the politics of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And then the art too, because the art of B movie editing is the same as the art of A movie editing. You're trying to make something work, and you're still dealing with pace and performance and point of view and perspective and contrast and composition, and just all the elements there. Only what they're saying is but visually, to make something that's stagnant, not motion, the principles are the same as for any. And so I wanted to communicate the art of the movie editing, and my first title for it was, from my point of view, editing the invisible art.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a way so that I could also figure out what I was going to say, so that the next day all I have to be concerned with is I just have to say something, was how I would say it. I already knew all the issues and solved whatever I could, at least in one way.
You've had an amazing journey through life, Allan.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you've persevered. I mean, through stuttering, through, child sexual abuse, like you just mentioned, and all the politics of filmmaking. I mean, that's incredible.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely. I love Battle Beyond the Stars. I always remember that scene where the aliens are eating the hot dog.
John Sayles is brilliant. He just, his genius comes through. And
Yeah.
that's all. They really kept it having a light spirit to it. And it was basically a movie for kids. And that was wonderful. For Roger to step into that realm where it really wasn't a kid's movie, but it was for kids.
Absolutely.
It had a wonderful spirit to it, and it wouldn't have had that if it were not for John.
It's kind of a science fiction remake of The Magnificent Seven.
And those Star Show. But it's really it's really based on the Seven Samurai, which
Of course.
Seven is based on.
Of course.
And even Robert Vaughn reprised the exact role that he played.
Yep. Yeah, character actors like him, yeah, they'll do anything, even if they've done it before,
Well, he had a great time in that film. I think he really enjoyed it. But the issue in Battle, the issue of the book, was that in terms of the special effects movie, Roger, he had a hard deadline to get into the theaters by the end of summer. And if he didn't make it, he missed his opportunity, and he had his whole, he had his largest investment. Battle, he's never even in a movie anymore. So he did one movie, Galaxy, was close in budget to that Battle. It was half the budget, basically. But a little more than half. But then I haven't got the mind that we averaged out to 600,000 for a special effects movie, where we had no digital effects at all. No even composite effects, except for laser beams, which were done with garbage mats.
Yeah.
We had film at 600,000, everything I ever done in front of the camera. And those 4 different monsters, that was crazy. And that's my second book, which I kept a journal on that, too. And that's pretty funny as well. But those basically meant for, to understand the art of the movie making,
mm-hmm.
which is basically determined a lot by the schedule. Like you have one day scenes with 3 with special effects, and you can't, and that's really in front of the cameras, but you have. So there's a lot to work out. But with the book on Battle, I had no idea that I would be in a position to save the movie, because it was a constant battle between, going over budget and getting all the effects. And John Shales, never wrote a special effects movie before, and so he had all these choreographed ships and everything, and storytelling and the special effects. And
mm-hmm.
it was really the very beginning of modern day special effects. So they had an Elecon computer camera that could repeat the same motion, but it was constantly breaking down. And so the special effects people could only, and Roger wrote numbers every day, how many how many effect shots were shot. And so to get the numbers up, they kept shooting flybys and avoiding the big shots because they were so trying to work all that out. And so by the time it came to the end, they extended it, and Roger was walking desolate in the parking lot, and I asked him what was wrong. He told me that they can't meet the deadline. I said, you can. If you with all these flyby shots, you can just have a choreographed display of laser beams and make different lines with the main ship, and there are enough character shots to pull that off. And he said, if you can do it, you can use my name. And so I took charge of every department, and I took charge of the rotoscope department. I wanted laser beams that came right to the screen and filled the screen.
Yeah.
And the artist said, it's not realistic. I said, realistic? Come on. 2 laser beams. Give me a break. Just fill the frame. It was in 5 frames. You got that. Anyway, so we did that, and we didn't have time to create mats, and so basically we did it with a pen, with a scratching point, and just scratched it by hand for a lot of them. So we did it and pulled it off in the theaters. I didn't sleep again.
Mm-hmm.
And basically lived in the editing room for the last 4 weeks, but made it to theater. So I did well for it,
Mm-hmm. So where's the book available?
Probably in February. The publisher is finalizing or reworking, I think, the cover art.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the book it has a more expressive thing that he wants to. Anyway, I'm giving him time to do the artwork. So, but he's also filled the book with lots of extras. And, it's like reading a magazine as well as reading the book. And then we leapt into. I've been trying to get a hold of the Kovac brothers. This is really their first big film, and they've been working with Cameron ever since. And they're very busy. They finally were able to schedule an interview with them, and they talked for nearly an hour, and I was able to put that as and afterward in the book, so that kind of helped. We have that in there now, which is just fantastic.
Wow. I'm definitely going to check that book out because I love that movie.
Well, I would love to give you, as soon as I get an advanced copy of it, as soon as it's ready, before it goes out, I'll give you a copy, and I would love for you to write a review of it or give an audio review.
Oh, that would be great, Alan. Thank you. I would love that.
And I'm happy to be interviewed again about the book specifically.
My pleasure. Do you have any other upcoming projects?
I have the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream that I'm really hoping to, this is, I did the original cut in '96, and every year in January and February the film is relevant, so people, I get into doors, and so I'm trying to get into the major doors on this one. And I've done another 4-screen thing regarding the climate change, about commuting on a bike. So I'm trying to find a corporate sponsor for that. And I've always been trying to get a movie made. I have this one movie that I developed with my aunt's grandson. We're in our 10th year. And it's an original horror film that everyone has loved the script. It's been so hard to get financing, and I've never gone without a deal, and people keep telling me that I should keep a journal of all the times I've been ripped off over the 10 years and lied to, and it's quite funny, but I just couldn't do myself to that. And again, I have so many journals I have to get out that, and I am writing my memoir called The Storytelling Stutterer. And, the first chapter was 50 pages long, and it's how I lost my virginity.
Awesome. I like those kind of stories.
And it's not where you do run into trouble.
Oh, that's awesome. So you got those projects going, and that's about it?
No, I have more. I have my, I made an autobiographical documentary cut. It's quite funny, but when I set it up at the film festival, it was finished 10 years ago. I got rejected by every one. I'd say even the smallest film festivals. People just didn't understand it at all. And autobiographical documentaries was not a term then. Now it's like. So I'm going to update it. This is the last 10 years, so I have a chance to resubmit. I'm not sure if I have to change the title or not, but that's on my list of going to right away, and I'm about to start editing another documentary, or being a second editor on one that already has a first cut. So,
yeah. Well, Allan, I hope you get all that done, and I think you're truly amazing, and I thank you for coming on the podcast today.
I do want to ask you a quick question if there's any more time, if I could.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm really curious about why Out of Control is really a favorite film of yours.
It's a fun movie, and I've always loved movies that took place in one location, because a lot of people don't realize you can make a really good story into just one location if you really dig deep enough to find the story. You know what I mean?
Sure.
One of my favorite movies of all time is the Kevin Smith movie Clerks, which takes place in a convenience store all day. I love stories like that, that just take place in one day, because you can really find, a good story there if you dig deep enough.
That's great. There's one story about Out of Control that I meant to tell you if I can.
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay, so I was invited back in the post-production process at the end when they had to loop the actors. And because they had, by contract, had to have a director there. I really didn't have any input that was left. And they wanted all these, like the striptease scene. I hated all the extra lines they added, because it just diminished the eroticism of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I was stuck with that. But the other lads that they were substituting for, because of audio problems, it was out of sync. It wasn't close.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept saying it's not in sync. And the sound guy was an older guy. I'm not putting down older people because I'm an older person now. But the older guy said, I can slide it. And I'm an experienced editor, and I know that you can't slide and make that work. And I say, it won't work. And he said it, and he's the sound editor. You can slide it. The very next day, he goes in for glaucoma surgery. He couldn't see anything in the theater.
Yeah.
And so they were ready to send it out like that. So I had to stay up all night in the editing room, and let me into that, trying to make the best sync of it. And around 2:30, I was hungry, and I went out to get something to eat. This was in the middle of Hollywood, and not the best section. At 2 million sound, and this was I did South Place. It was basically a house that was converted into a town studio. And I came back and I locked myself out. I didn't know there was a key that you needed to get in there. And so I left the window open on the second floor where the editing room was.
Yeah.
And so there was a metal iron fence there with pointed edges to prevent people from trying to break in. And so I climbed it to try to get back in the editing room, and I got to the top and I slipped, and the spear went right through my pants and cut through, and I was hanging there.
Oh, man.
And the police come by, and I'm telling them that I'm the director of the movie. Anyway, they did call the owner of the place, and he confirmed that I was the director, and they let me back in. Let me back into the window.
You're lucky to be alive right now.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Well, Alan, thank you so much. And when you have an advanced copy, I'll send you my address.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tommy.
My pleasure. Have a great day, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Allan Holzman. Ain't he a cool dude? Perseverance. That's the theme of this show. Perseverance. Great guy. I like him an awful lot. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.